This is Don with Airbrush the Magazine with Bob and Tammy Barney. We're going to talk about the history of Tamco Paint.
Okay. You want to start that or you want me to?
You can go ahead.
Well, Tamco Paint started in 1989. Believe it or not, the very first item that we sold was a hand protection product called DermaShield that you could literally, it was a foam, you put it on your hands, and you could even put muriatic acid in your hands and it wore away. It was liquid glove, but on steroids. It was really good. And we started by the end of 89 selling mainly like clears. And we weren't even in the catalyst business. We were doing mainly clears and solvents. And that was mainly through even the 90s. We did more solvents than anything. And I worked for other companies in the 80s. I was a rep for American Lacquers, and that was sold to PPG. That's where Amberflint comes from, which we have the name back again. And we moved to Virginia in 96. I ran an automotive paint operation up here. We sold Tamco. That was my agreement in order to take the job. And we were also a very large PPG distributor. And in 2000, we decided to go totally Tamco. We bought out a company that did hardeners called Harpea. We inherited their owner as our chemist, our first chemist, Mike Smith, who was just a smart cookie. And we started really getting into making the products that I used to make back in the 80s, which was good quality urethanes. I learned from Mike and some other people we had employed. We had a former PPG and a former Sherwin-Williams chemist help us do base coats, get into the base coat business, and primers, stuff like that. And we got into color around 2010, and we really have upped our game with color now that we can match about anything out there. We're working on actually being able to put out a mixing bank with about 100 toners.
And formulas. That's really what we're waiting on, is formulas to be able to do that.
So that's a brief history. There's more in-depth history to it.
We really got into color because Tammy really wanted to do color. We were happy with just doing the primers and the clears because our primer really was the most popular selling product, which is now surpassed by clear, but still primer is very...
Yeah, early on, when we got into the primer business over 20 years ago, it became popular, very, very popular. And we were selling then only on eBay and through a store we had in Norfolk. And to this day, I don't think there's a primer that touches it. Most automotive primers, all automotive primers that I'm aware of, they're really not truly direct to metal or direct to aluminum or direct to galvanized, which the reason our primer is called GalvaPrime is it's direct to all of those without using a adhesion promoter underneath it. It has awesome etching power of its own right. It's an industrial resin type product, but it's a true acrylic urethane. We actually use it in many of our top coat urethanes as well as our clear coats. It bonds to metals very well and plastics, and it's very high build. It does not shrink back because it's a true acrylic urethane. Many of the automotive primers out there are enamel urethanes. There's a big difference. We're more flexible and, again, better adhesion. And like you were saying, our daughter Tammy really was into color. I mean, when she was in high school, we would put her in dealership body shops that we had, and she did all the paint mixing for those shops. And after school, she'd mix everything they needed for the next day, which were, in many cases, 30, 40, 50 mixes.
Or she would come in after school and take the mismatches, and people in jobber stores know what a mismatch is. It's called the oops, and make colors out of them. So that's really when her interest to color came about, I think.
Yes, she's very good. The colors that we have today on the website, They are all made by Tammy. Her nickname is Tamster. That's even her email. That's a nickname that she had when she was 3 years old, since she was 3 years old. But she has a very good color eye. She's made all the candy colors. She's made all the custom colors. Her and her husband, up until now, have done all the mixing of paint. That's why
She
we're so
created
busy.
the formulas.
She created the formulas, right? And as we're growing, and like this show, I think is almost double last show in participation. As we keep growing, we keep hiring people. In the last month, we've hired 2 people. One just 2 days ago, and one a month ago. And we need people like in our Florida location. We're looking at other places in the country to put warehouses. Our growth has been tremendous. A lot of the growth is because Tammy and her color matching and her color creation capabilities. We have colors like I don't think anybody's ever had. And we have a loyal following that I've never seen with a paint company, including the American Lacquers Amberflint that I talked so much about back in the 80s. Everything at Disney World was painted in Amberflint, all Norfolk Southern trains. This was a 30-year product. We still make it. I won back the name after it was not protected, so I retrademarked the name, and that's going to be our Marine Industrial Fleet coating. It's basically the Duraflint 2 that you see, or the high impact clear that you see, with a little bit of differences to it because it's made for large areas and not small cars and stuff like that.
There's a separate website for the Marine, right?
American, yeah.
Tamco
Finishes, I'm sorry. TamcoFinishes.com. And
Tamco Marine.
And TamcoMarine.com. And we have there, on that site, we have all of our fleet products. We have military spec products. We do a lot of military spec products for the Navy and Coast Guard. And we have our fleet products. For example, one product we have, we don't sell an automotive line, but maybe we should, but we have a sealer. It's called Forever Seal. And literally, it's a 1K, and many other paint companies, our competition, I would say, will call it a 1K epoxy, which there is no such thing as a one component epoxy. It's kind of lying on the label, but it's a special resin that most people would not even recognize the name. It's called a phenolic resin. And the advantage of that resin as a sealer, the only thing that beats it is a high-end epoxy resin. But this is the advantage of this Forever Seal. You can mix it up in your spray gun, and you can leave it in your spray gun forever, and it'll never get hard. You can spray a vehicle, truck, or car with it as a sealer, and you can paint over it within 20 minutes or in 20 years and never sand it. It's there forever. The United States Navy, for example, requires it for most of their primer sealers because of the fact you can't paint a boat in 24 hours. And you need a product that stays open long enough, even longer than an epoxy. And in the old days where I came from in 1980, every automotive paint company had such a product. Sherwin-Williams was called Jet Seal. I believe DuPont was Velvet Seal. I don't remember the RM name for it, but they all had a phenolic sealer, and they're bulletproof. They do not fail, and they're not catalyzed. And the fleet world loves it because they're going to paint a 40-foot trailer. They can prime it in a day, and they can come back 2 days or a week or a month later and then paint it, and they don't have to do anything to it to prepare it.
What about an airplane?
It's good for an airplane. Most people with airplanes are going to want an epoxy, which our DTA, which is available automotive or on the fleet site. The DTA is a unique epoxy resin. It's unlike anything you can buy. It's made by a South Korean company, and the other user of that product, to my knowledge, it's still the case, is Boeing, and it's made especially for aircraft. And the DTA has capabilities that other epoxies do not have, but it's only made to be a sealer, not a primer, not a high build primer. and it can go, we say in our tech sheets 7 days without sanding, but it really can go 30 days without sanding.
It's an amazing product.
They can order off that website too?
Yes, it's
Just
on
like
both.
the Tamco Paint
It's
website?
on both websites.
What's
The
new
majority
coming
of the orders right now come to TamcoPaint.com.
Yes, right. TamcoFinishes.com has been up for almost a year. We do some business with it, but it's really not the right word, I would say, user-friendly like Tamco Paint yet. We haven't put the effort into it because Tamco Paint has exploded so much in the last 3 years, we can't keep up,
But especially in the last year.
and especially in the last year.
Since
But the last
really
3
last
years
March.
has been unbelievable. We've outgrown everything we did. We outgrew a website we had before. We went to a new website, which you use today. We've really kind of outgrown that website because there's complications. We have grown so much in the last 3 years. It's just tremendous.
You just came out with the candies. What's next?
What is next?
Neons?
What's she working on? I know.
What
I'll
did you
give
say,
you a couple.
neons? That might be something that Tammy's interested in. I don't know if we have right now a what's next because we're so swamped and so busy in what we're doing now, especially since March of 2020 when COVID hit. It's just unbelievable. And I might add that we have some pretty amazing customers and they help share everything.
Yes.
I receive so many phone calls a day from people asking, I think the way they talk, I think they're actually a customer because they've used the product. And when I try to look them up in the system, they're not there because they're not actually a customer yet, but yet their friend gave them a gallon. And if you like it, order it and then, pay me back too. So they call and order 2 gallons. So while I think they're a customer, technically they're not in the system as a customer yet.
Right.
And this is coming from customers sharing it. We don't even have to advertise.
I will address the neon thing because I talked to Don about it yesterday, I think, or the day before.
I'm letting them out
Tammy.
of the bag.
No, not at all. Tammy asked me to look into neons several months ago, and I used to make neon for American Lacquers. We had a very vivid neon line, and it didn't last 4 months in Florida. It was faded, and even when we put it into the Amerflint clear coat over top of it, which would be our high impact today, it gave it maybe a year, and it would still start fading. But I've done some research for her because she really wanted us to get some really bright neons going. And I found a couple of companies that claim, and we got samples on the way, that claim that their neons in the right resin system will not fade for 2 to 3 years. You can get 2 years out of a neon, you have a home run, or 3 years. I'm talking about Florida exposure. If you live in Maine, you'd go 20 years, but
That's the drawback of a neon.
yeah.
Because it doesn't last. And in our candies, people ask, well, is this going to last, a year, 2 years or whatever? And I'm like, I hope so. We put 2 UVs in our candies and other candy companies out there don't do that. And we give the hardener with it as well.
And we put all of our candy paints have maximum UV, and also they're let down in a very high-tech, high-end resin that I don't think anybody else is using to give it incredible urethane durability. I think our candies will last quite long. The testing is very limited because we've only had it out for a year, but the UV testing, and that's not always the best. You still need that Florida exposure test, but which is underway. But the UV testing shows a couple thousand hours without failure, and that's 2,000 hours is 4 to 5 Florida years.
For those that don't know, is it the candy or is it the clear that provides the UV protection?
Well, and ours just goes all the way through. Our clear coat has it, but our candy also has it. And and we put it in the concentrate. We put it in the 3,000 candy carrier. We put it in the candy itself, and then the clear coat is giving you more protection.
You know what?
We've got
Film
double
build.
protection.
Film build is very important for UV protection. I think everybody remembers the days of the peelers, and the reason that the peelers happen to my knowledge, and I think I'm right, was that a particular OEM paint company sold many OEM car companies on the fact they could do a one coat clear. This is when they were doing spray and clear. And it was a one coat, very high solids clear. And they said it would give the protection they needed. And another company produced all the E-coat for almost every car company out there. And so they started blaming each other who failed. But the truth was there wasn't enough clear film to protect the paint from UV, and the paint baked itself and peeled off.
What's the plans for the Tamco Takeover? Just keep
I
it
believe
growing?
I believe we're going to do this again. This is the most incredible thing I ever saw. You know, we did the first one last fall, which generally has better weather than the spring. But because we like doing it at Langley Speedway, and they have this speedway is a very popular speedway. In our former days as a paint distributor in this area, we had every single division of this racetrack sponsored. And so we have a long history with the owners of this track and Chuck Hall. But we're going to probably do it again in the spring of next year. In the fall, we might do something different, kind of different, that you and I talked about, but I haven't figured it out yet. But springtime in Virginia can be very tricky. My daughter is lucky. My daughter puts an event in rainy time of Virginia, and we've had beautiful weather, so she's very lucky. I thought when we picked this week, we were going to have 4 days of rain, because that's Virginia weather. But we've had a great week.
The big thing I hear from people who use your product is the amount of tech support they get, both from the Facebook group and via phone, and just Tammy answering messages. You just don't get that from big companies anymore.
I don't think
Pat
anybody,
Dry.
and Pat Dry now, I don't think anybody, any other, have the kind of tech support we do. It got out. I did all the tech calls up until 4 months ago, and by trying to find materials, which are impossible to find, raw materials, and I do the banking and the books and stuff like that. I ran out of time doing the tech
And material sourcing.
and material source, as I said, raw materials.
Right.
And so our tech rep in Florida, we made him the national tech rep now. Pat Dry, he's been in this business, I believe, over 30 years. Knows his stuff, knows Tamco. He sprayed Tamco as a customer for many years. He has all kinds of experience, and he answers the tech line now. But basically, somebody can get an answer 7 days a week for many hours a day.
Somehow, yeah.
Somehow they get answers, and I don't think there's any other company that has that kind of support. And as big as we are now, it's hard, and I'll tell you, it's hard. My wife is the person who answers the order line, and even though we're an online
And
site
customer service.
but the order line, and we're an online site, but a lot of people don't want to order online. Or if it's mixed color, they have to call her, and she's on the phone morning
Or
to
people
night.
honestly call and say, you know, I just wanted to hear that there was a live person at the other end of this phone or business, because I've heard so much about you, and I just had to call and just to, you know, ask a few questions, or just, are you guys for real? Literally.
She's on the phone most of the day and way into the night. And I make her shut it off now at 9 o'clock. And then when she turns her phone on in the morning, there's people that have called at 2 in the morning, 3:30 in the morning. And I'm thinking, who really thinks that somebody's going to answer the phone? But
And the same thing applies to the tech line.
in the tech line too, yeah.
2, 3,
So-
4 o'clock in the morning.
So for
It's
people
ringing.
who don't know, they could get the paint code from their car and call it in, and you can.
We can make
We make paint to code, yes.
we make paint to code. If you know the
Yes.
car code, we probably have almost every paint code going back to 1920s matched. Our single stage lines, we do not make it in pearls or metallics yet, though I'm working on that. But if you want a metallic or a pearl, now you get it in our base coat. And one thing that should be mentioned here is our base coat. We make one base coat. We make a high-end base coat at a reasonable cost. We don't make a low-end base coat and a medium and a high-end. We make just a high-end base coat. It's a 1-to-1. It's not a 2-to-1. It covers 2 to 3 coats. 4 coats is out of the ordinary.
It's basically 2, though.
And because we still put a lot of pigment. Our toner system that we developed, for years we were trying to decide what way we were going to go with the toner system. And I wanted to do how I got into this business. Back in the 1970s and 80s, toners were brilliant, especially the Ditzler lacquer line. All the airbrush people wanted to use Ditzler lacquer because the orange was orange, like you can't believe, and the yellow was vivid. And then paint companies started adding whites and blacks to their toners so they could lower the pigment load, save money, and get coverage. But the problem is they get muddy colors. They get colors that don't have that brilliance. I hear today, and from my perspective, I find it a joke, but I hear today people say, oh, you got to buy water-based base coats because you can't match these vivid cars today with a solvent paint. No, you can't match them with most of the solvent base coats out there because they've polluted them with black and white. But if you had a true color, yellows and blacks and blues and stuff like that, you could match anything, water-based or not, with a solvent-based paint.
The other big thing I hear is they're dealing directly with you, not a jobber. And everybody loves that because they're talking to the others.
Yes.
It's more personable.
It's more personal, yes.
And you're talking to the people who make the product.
Right.
Now, I grew up in the jobber business, in this business. 1980, I started working for a paint distributor, DuPont, in Hollywood, Florida. And I ran a very big jobber organization in the early 90s, mid-90s in Norfolk, PPG, and Tamco. In order to have me on board, they had to take on Tamco. We provided everything back then. Yeah, we doubled our money. When you buy a $500 gallon of paint from a big company, that company sold it to the jobber for almost half that, if not half that price. So the jobber doubles his money. But in our day, when we ran, we spent a lot of money at this racetrack. But not only that, we had 2 auto body techs, paint techs, that when we would put them in for free, when their painter went on vacation, and we had some of the best painters working for us, they outperformed the painters that they replaced on vacation. That the painter took a vacation and did more hours off the job than he did on the job. We had a body shop manager work for us who was one of the prestigious body shop managers of this area that ran shops that did $1 million a month work for us that we would put in and help somebody. My wife at the time, through Tamco, was also selling CCC estimating systems for the whole state of Virginia. And we had computer experts. We had training experts. And they all went through our jobber store. We gave service for that 50% profit line, right? Today, I just see people picking up a toner, putting it on a truck and delivering it and making a lot of money. And when in 2010, we got away from that model. It was our idea to go online. At first, I think people thought we were nuts, but the idea was to sell direct to the end user and give them a good quality product at a reasonable price. The closest thing to automotive paint, I know my friends in this industry are going to hate me for saying this, but it's prescription drugs. It doesn't cost $1,600 to make a gallon of anything. Nothing. They don't have $60 in that $1,600 paint. And that's the truth. And they buy a lot cheaper than I can buy. The reason that is, when I got into the business in 1980, there was over 100 automotive paint companies in America. And the top 5 had a 26% market share. Today, there's 16, my last count, American automotive paint companies. We're one of 16. But the top 5 have a 98% market share. I work for a company of American Lacquers and Solvents in Tampa. They had Flint. We're a big paint company. And we were bought out by PPG and shut down, merged into another division. And that's what the big companies do. They buy out little guys until there's no competition, and then they can raise their price, like the drug world.
And they show.
We get offers all the time to sell. We don't plan on selling. We ain't going to sell. My daughter wants to do it. My daughters, I got 2 daughters involved. Christine does the web support. If you do info at Tamco Paint for a question, she's the one going to get that and either answer or send it to me or Tammy or Tamster. And then our grandchildren want the company. They're all working. Right now, because we're doing this event, Isabel's 11. My 11-year-old daughter, who's as smart as granddaughter, I'm sorry, who's as smart as a whip, is pulling all the orders for her father and mother, who are
boxing
everything.
William, who's 6, when he was 4, he hopped up in the kind of high chair at the desk and said, "I'm gonna run this company," and he still says it now that he's 6.
In my whole life, I worked for a family paint company. Frank Esposito and his sons had American Lacquers and Solvents. And I saw that company go from near bankruptcy to becoming a major powerhouse of a company under that man. He was a great man. Tammy and I was as poor could be. We were down in the dirt, and his family picked us up, put us in a home we would never be able to afford for $300 a month rent, and treated us like family. That's how we treat our employees, like they're our family. That's how we treat our customers, like they're our family. I learned a lot from him and how he did business, and most companies don't do business that way anymore. We appreciate the people who stand by us.
It's not just the tech that we provide. We really stress customer service.
All the way around.
It shows. It shows.
But
And when the customers, when new people call me, they tell me that. They know they're calling because they're going to get customer service because they've already been told that by someone else. And of course, Tammy's in every Facebook group there is. You know,
She's a powerhouse.
she's a powerhouse. She is.
and how many companies today, and this was the standard when I first got into this business, everybody, I was just like one of everybody. But how many companies today take the time to ask a paint customer what they need? What's take an interest in their own business, because it doesn't happen anymore. Even we found this out trying to get into the Coast Guard. We're a woman-owned business, so we have an avenue into the Navy and Coast Guard. The big paint companies tell the United States Navy, this is the product, we don't modify it. We were at Mega Rust 2 years ago. We were allowed to speak to the Coast Guard with only 2 other there were 7 paint companies there, and only 2 other paint companies were allowed to give them a presentation. And our presentation was our service, that they could call us anytime they're going to get an answer, but we'll modify any product they need for their need. Certain products were failing, and the companies they were dealing with was like, there's nothing you can do about it. And it's not true. There was products they could be changed to make happen, especially on aluminum outdrives on the Coast Guard boats. And we showed them it could be done. The ironic thing there was, in one particular case, we showed out how it could be done, and then when the bigger companies realized they might lose their business, they followed my recommendation and filled the orders. But that even made
modified
the order.
Yes.
Well, no, they filled the orders. We didn't get the order.
Right, but they had to modify it to do
They
it.
had to modify their product, and that don't really bother me. If it sounds like it bothered me, because I am a patriot, and if I got them to move for the Coast Guard, I felt good. But what I do know is that the people who make decisions there know us personally and know we would go the extra mile no matter if we got to sail or not. We developed a special adhesive for the anti-slip. I can't think what it's called.
Anti-skid.
Anti-skid tape that they put on all the stairways, and the product they're using is not compliant. And we came up with a totally compliant product. And again, we did a lot of research on that. We were offered.
And it wasn't working.
It would fail. And we were offered to be able to get a grant to do the project. And we turned down the grant. We did the project for free. And the adhesive company that refused to work for them after they saw the product we made, and we did not want to make it anyway, because we would have to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars
A big name company.
in machinery we didn't want to do. So anyway, that's our idea of business. Your business is important to us. You're important to us. Um, I have to say, sometimes people get mad at us and think we're not taking an issue important enough or not. But you have to realize we have grown tremendously with basically the same amount of people we have today. We've just hired 2 this month, I would say. But it's hard finding people to work for you who want to work, and it's a growth that I did not expect 3 years ago. And
We've spoiled our customers.
we have spoiled a lot of customers. Some of them know it and appreciate it, and some of them expect it and don't appreciate it. But if they go somewhere else, they appreciate us again and usually see the light. We do care about your business.
With a big new warehouse in Florida, it should make things a little better.
Yeah, our plan there, and I think we're going to have more eventually, but our plan there was Wakefield, where we ship from today, is a little town in the middle of nowhere. And there's some advantages to that, but one of it is not finding employees. And they are overwhelmed. We ship out over 200 boxes a day, FedEx ground boxes, as well as pallet orders, every single day. And so my idea was to manufacture large quantities on pallets, send them to Florida, and let Florida, with 2 or 3 employees, be able to ship to the southeast United States. It will be cheaper FedEx pricing for us, and it will give product to the customer a full day or 2 earlier than they can get from Wakefield. So it should improve our service, it should improve our delivery time, and it will drastically lower our cost. We give, as of right now, we give free shipping at $275. Basically, if you place a $300 order with us and get free shipping, and you live in California, 40% of that $300 order is going to be our cost in shipping. If we make profit on that product, it's within a few dollars. That has to somehow change. As you get bigger and bigger, you got to really watch what you're doing. So we're going to have to get a warehouse out west. We're going to have to do some things. We spend, I won't say what it is, but we spend many tens of thousands of dollars a month with FedEx. Tens and tens and tens.
We have a lot of customers in Washington State and Arizona.
Yes.
And Texas is massive.
And Texas is massive.
Okay.
That's basically the difference in the last 3 years of our growth. Our growth has come from our customer base, and we have a loyal and Tammy and everybody. We have a manufacturing people, Byron and Ryan, and a new guy we hired for that. But those 2 work really hard, making sure the products are right. We have to test everything to make sure they come out right. Our shipping department does miracles, in my opinion. We do make mistakes, but when you see we brought the guy up from Florida, James. He's been with us less than a month, and we brought him up to work the big shop for this week of the show, and he saw what it was to work in hell.
Now he's out there taking lessons.
Yeah.
Right. He's taking a class.
Yeah, and I think he's going to be great for us in Florida. He's really smart, but if we ever put your camera at them packaging, I think everybody would stop complaining about anything. We double box everything. We spend a fortune on peanuts and paper machine, $4,000 a roll, a pallet for rolls of paper that we shred to put in. And we do everything we can do to protect boxes. We can't help it if they drop it off the Empire State Building before they deliver it.
Or the FedEx driver throws it like a football.
But
literally.
The only way around that, to have absolutely no damage, which we'd have to do for air if we ship air, is to put it in a UN air quality box, which is a complete styrofoam sleeve that goes over every gallon, and it would cost $30 a box just for the box. And that would have to go on the cost of the paint. So a little time, a dented can is worth the downside to it.
I think the Tamco Takeover has gotten huge.
I think it's twice as what I.
Next year, and I'd rather come to this than see.
I agree. SEMA does not interest me. I don't
SEMA
know.
is a place to go around and see what out there is new. This is, you're also going to see what's new, but you get to use it,
You get
get your hands in it, and somebody's teaching you how to do it.
Yeah.
There's so many people that have come here that have never touched an airbrush, never touched anything to do with paint, or even used a brush or a stencil or anything. And they leave here, and sometimes you can't tell, like, who did it.
Even Pat with the body shop and restoration class,
Right.
which was one of the biggest classes, is amazing.
Yeah.
You have at this place, we had people here from Eastman Company, which is every base coat made in the world by any paint company has to use the Eastman product to make base coat. That's how big they are. And they actually came to our event and were absolutely shocked by it, and even allowed an interview to be given. And one of them said to me yesterday that he's never seen one area with so many talented people in one small little racetrack. We have the who's who
From all
of
over the
talent.
country.
Yeah, we have the who's who in talent. You go through the Airbrush magazine that Don has, you'll see most of those people use Tamco, and they're the premier artists in the world.
And right now, many of them are here.
And they're all here, basically.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah, basically.
we have top-notch people. Steve Nielsen, who does the butterflies, which we have in our butterfly garden, and other things. He has a piece of work that's in the Guggenheim Museum in New York City. We have another guy, Kevin Kegler, here, who does helmets for the NHL with our coatings. Wouldn't use nothing but our coatings. Like I said, there's so much talent here, I feel humbled. And the people that came here and bought a class and went to the class, I haven't had anybody tell me they didn't think they got their money's worth.
It's $300 for a whole week, and you can go to skip different classes
Exactly.
every other day if you want.
Right.
$300, that's
Absolutely.
unheard of in this business.
And if I take somebody up, like our new employee James, and say, hey, do you think you could? And they'll work them in.
Yep.
They're just all really good people.
And again, artists tend to be ego-driven,
So crazy.
and you got to be that to be good. But they work with each other. They don't knock each other. They don't try to impress each other. This is like a huge extended family. I have never experienced this
You
in
look at
42
Tim
years.
Leary, who's one of the best artists
Yeah,
we have. He's just a humble.
Yes.
These people are phenomenal.
And kind of a huge party.
It's like family.
Yep, it is
Our
like family.
grandson's peeking on us over there.
So basically, I think it's probably almost double the size it was in the fall. I think next year it's going to be so big, I don't know what we're going to do, but we'll figure it out. Because people are talking about this. I mean, even my good friend who runs another paint company across the street from me, when I told him that Eastman showed up, he was absolutely dumbfounded and said, "Do you realize how that's going to go through this industry?"
Not only did they show up, they showed up for 3 days.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes. And said how much fun they had.
Right. And
How'd you get all these people here?
and there's going to be talks about the industry. There's going to be much more interest, I believe, again by next year. And I don't know what we're going to do. We might have to break it eventually into 2 times. Maybe one in Florida and one up here.
Please.
Because we do have a paint booth. We have a 10,000 square foot building with a paint booth in it as
And
well.
parking beyond belief.
That's what we want to see.
Right. A couple people asked me about it yesterday. Have you thought about maybe holding it, in another location? We really haven't really talked about it, but that could be a possibility.
It's got to have to be eventually because we're going to outgrow this.
Right. And we do have, inside, and we have a good sized parking lot that we could put tents out there too.
Right.
So.
And we don't want to have this thing become so big there's no longer, you're just a number. Nobody knows who you are. We got to keep it small.
You got to keep that small feel.
You got to keep it small.
Which
so
you're
you
getting
might
from
have to do more to keep it small.
With the type of people who attend this, though, I mean, a lot of them belong to the Facebook group, or know each other from Instagram and whatnot, so it's like a big family anyways.
Right.
And you're part of the great thing about coming here is networking with not only you, the owners of the paint company, but with other artists that use your products.
Yes.
I mean,
Very good people at that.
the expense to be here is very costly. We could have sold probably 300, 400 more tickets and broke even, but that's not what we want to do. I mean, SEMA costs us a lot of money, and we don't have this kind of. So we don't mind doing this. We don't want to get it big where we make a profit on doing it, but then no one really has a good experience. And so I think if next year, really, we're going to have to limit again. And then if there's a lot of people on overflow, we're going to have to do a second.
Well, part of the success is Tammy's ability to pick good instructors.
Oh, yeah.
That's
said
the
the
key
talent.
thing right there.
Yeah, the talent.
That she selected some of the best, humblest, but the best talented, most talented artists we have. And that is key to it right there. They're very responsive to students. They're very responsive to other instructors and students.
Yes, it's like I said. I'm humbled by all of this.
We all are, actually.
And one thing I would like to get across, and would be the end. Tammy and I feel the same way. We struggled. There were times when we thought we were going to not stay in this business. We know what it's like to be poor. We know what it's like to run a body shop. We know what it's like to run a paint store. We know what people go through, and we know how hard this world is. It's hard to work for a living. It's a lot easier to sit on your ass and collect a check. But it's hard to work for a living. But I will always have sympathy to those people who want to work their own business and not work for a company or stay on welfare or whatever. This business allows mothers to stay home and do cups, Yeti cups, and allows people to come home from a work they don't like and go into their garage and work on a car or motorcycle or skateboard or Trullers, and we want to support you. Do not think, because right now we are living quite well, do not think we don't know where we came from and who made us get there. Our daughters, as well as you, our customers.
And God.
And God.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The airbrush community says thank you.